start at 6:30, so.
If the budget's.
You talking about, I can get this, well, no, people are talking it tonight.
When I say we got almost nothing on the agenda except.
Well, I'm gonna talk about,
100,000.
yeah, we got a couple things.
That's.
Okay, we are on the air. Welcome, everybody, to the Tuesday, October 15th, 2024, Prior Lake Spring Lake Watershed District meeting. I'll call this meeting to order, and please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I know, but it's, I got you.
No, you're on time. I like it.
Okay, well, welcome again to everyone. And first item on the agenda is a public comment from anyone here who wishes to address the Board of Managers on an item that's not on the agenda or the consent agenda. And I only see one person in our audience, and I think she's okay. All right. Next would be approval of the agenda as submitted. Any additions, corrections, deletions for everybody? Some staff, you have a change?
Staff would like to propose adding MPCA grant agreement to the agenda under the consent agenda.
Consent, would that be 6.7?
Correct.
6.7 would be the MPCA agreement that just came in probably.
An hour after we sent out the packet.
Okay, that's right. That's usually where
As
it goes.
they do.
Okay, with that change, I'll be looking for a motion to approve the agenda. So moved by Manager Burnett, second by Manager Tofanelli. I don't think there's any more discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carried 5-0. Okay, now we're going to go to old and new business. We'll start with programs and project update.
All right. We are going to start with the fire station. For those of you who do not know, we are currently temporarily housed in the Prior Lake 2 fire station. We have a tentative date of February 25 to get back to our office in City Hall. We are not open at this time for public, but we can accommodate scheduled meetings. You can always call or email us as well. To begin with, Manager.
I just want to point out one thing. I called the Watershed District office yesterday, assuming you're closed, but the answer machine message is about being here still. So you might want to look at changing that until February.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. To continue on, lake levels, they continue to drop. The spring prior channel is now dry, and it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of rain in the forecast, so we'll likely continue dropping. This is kind of the biggest update that I have for you. It's been a work in progress the last year plus, but we have been transitioning to a new database for all of our data, and we've pretty much finished up transitioning all of our historic data to this new website, which will kind of increase efficiencies in data analysis. So it's been kind of a work in progress. Just to kind of give you an idea of how big this database is, it has a manual of about more than 4,000 pages. So It's a big database that can handle a lot and do a lot of analyses. In addition, our water monitoring season is kind of coming to a wrap for this year. We haven't really been getting much rain anymore, so most of our sites are kind of either dry or at very low flows and not worth sampling at this point. So we are slowly transitioning to more of the analysis side of things. Another couple updates. As you know, we moved storage units, so we kind of downsized some of our equipment. We got rid of a bunch of stuff and donated what we could to, or sold some of our nets to our carp consultants, and then got rid of whatever else we could. And it's actually working pretty well with the space that we have now. In addition, we've been uninstalling our pit stations for carp. So all of our equipment for our carp studies are now out of the field. Sediment coring, this was just last week. We were out on Spring Lake collecting sediment cores, and what this will kind of tell us is how effective the alum treatments have been over the course of the last several years. And EOR will be providing all of the data analysis and a memo in spring of '25 to better inform future management decisions on kind of whether it's time for an alum treatment or what that kind of looks like in the future. And a couple of volunteer events. This was just a couple weeks ago. Danielle planned a very successful volunteer event removing a bunch of buckthorn over by the Ducks Unlimited wetland over by Raymond Park. We filled the dumpster and then some, as you can see there. We had about 7 or 8 volunteers, which was a really good number, and we cleared a lot of the buckthorn, but there's still a lot left to do. And then a future volunteer event from this removal of buckthorn. There will be a wreath making event on October 26th at Boathouse Brothers Brewing from 1 to 3. And there will be plenty of advertisements on our website and on our Facebook page on how to sign up for that.
Okay, taking over from here. Got quite a few projects to give you updates on. I have held on the projects you've heard a lot about recently, trying to give you some new information. So we'll touch on Sutton Lake Management Plan follow-up actions, some updates on Spring West Iron Enhanced Sand Filter, as well as work that's going on in the Fish Lake area to follow up on the Lake Management Plan update. And then finally, the Buck Stream stabilization, which you have heard about, but just an update there. So to start with Sutton Lake Management Plan, as a refresher, we did this plan a couple years ago. One of the goals was to promote plant diversity, and one tool that can do that is lake drawdown. We are lucky, if you could say that, to have some natural drawdown in the form of a drought in 2020 through 2022. So the district has been monitoring the impacts on that drawdown on vegetation by doing drone surveys. This will be our 3rd year conducting that in October. We only have the comparison from the last 2 years, 2023 and 2022, but that initial review, the cattail population decreased. We'll see if that trend continues, and we would need to see trends for 5+ years to get any meaningful understanding that it's linked to the drawdown. So we'll be continuing doing that with soil and water. To touch on, oh, sorry, Manager Toffenelli.
Are you able to differentiate between the good cattails and the bad cattails?
Not via drones, and sometimes not at all. It's hard to identify. The concern with this lake is that it's pretty dominant. Lots of acres of just cattail, where there used to be a much more mixed plant diversity. You can see it still in the seed beds when they did their studies. So there were wild rice there, and just wanted to understand that.
Okay, I was just curious on
Yep.
that. Thank you.
Moving on to Spring West Iron Enhanced Sand Filter. The picture on the left has kind of a see-through outline of the Spring West subwatershed. The reason we looked here in a past study is because water quality monitoring, which Jeff and Zach do, have indicated that this is an area where we get a lot of nutrient and sediment added to the system. And so we're looking at options for that area. In that location where that star is, we did an outlet replacement. You can see that old crushed pipe in the bottom right. The goal with that is to differentiate where we're getting this nutrient source. It's unknown if it's leaching. There's a lot of different hypotheses, so you can see all the different inputs. We're going to be taking samples to differentiate how much is coming from and where. That's still ongoing because we've had a year that has been either flooded or dry, and so we're waiting for levels that allow us to differentiate those sources. But further down the blue line towards Spring Lake, I just wanted to mention that we're also looking at other opportunities for locations for project sites. We've been meeting with some different landowners to see if we could conduct something like an iron enhanced sand filter, and just looking at options to get BMP's best management practices in the places that make sense for what's happening in this area. So those are going forward. They're still definitely in preliminary concepting phases, but Carl is helping drafting up some ideas for landowner response, and we anticipate continuing those conversations to see if it's something that gains traction. The third item on the list is touching on Fish Lake and what's happening there. A reminder that the district did a plan update in 2023 with EOR, and the plan essentially said you need to solve excess nutrients coming from the watershed, as well as those that are residual at the bottom of the lake, internal, and gave us lots of different options to do that. The district decided to focus on external loading and had identified some target projects that were kind of the lowest hanging fruit, accomplish a lot with a little money. And so I just wanted to give you an idea of where those are. The highlighted areas on the map are areas where would be potential areas of project impact. So you can see pretty good distribution of the watershed. And then there's different project titles overlaid on that map. So you can see those there. The ones that we selected are listed on the right. A green circle next to a project indicates that it is in action, or at least in development, feasibility phases, no fatal flaws yet. Yellow means that there's interest, but we haven't moved forward yet. And then there is the only red so far was we didn't get any landowner interest so far in an iron enhanced sand filter on the Fairlawn inlet there. That doesn't really impact our ability to make change because we had prioritized doing mostly implementation projects, and that would be a study. So the study we are going forward with is the Lake Ridge Stormwater Study, and you'll see that later on today's agenda, as well as continuing our ongoing management with carp and curly leaf pondweed management. So we're doing really well in this watershed. We also have been sharing that message with Fish Lake residents. Although we can always continue to do more, we want to let people know that these things are going on. So the kind of diagram on the left was a mailer that was sent out to residents talking about the different ways that we're cleaning up their lake and also advertising the shoreline restoration workshop that we did at Spring Lake Town Hall in July. So that went forward, and we expect some projects to come out of that shoreline workshop. Also just want to demonstrate again that we've gotten external support from WBIF funds for what we call 200th Street Pond Improvement, and we also have support from Spring Lake Township for the Lake Ridge Stormwater Study. So a lot of movement, and want to continue to share that's happening. And then a reminder, if we complete all these projects, we would have an estimated reduction of around 36 pounds of phosphorus, and our goal is 103. So pretty quick action in 1 year. And then our last update is that our Breck Stream Stabilization construction has begun. I was out there today, and they're flying around with lots of action, so it was exciting. They are clearing the undergrowth of buckthorn first, and with smaller woody debris that they can use to stabilize the banks. So that'll be the first step, and then they'll go in end of this week and the next weeks to install the bank practices. This project, substantial completion, is going to be by the end of the month, certified by the year end, and the district will maintain that site in the next 2 years. Essentially, this site was overgrown with buckthorn, and it would be unreasonable and not successful to ask a landowner to do that themselves. So we want to help them establish it in a healthy realm, and then they will take over maintenance 2027 through 2034. You can see, oh, there's another just picture of the clearing that has been done. So, any questions?
Any questions for staff on the board? I think there's no questions. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the Bush easement amendment, item 4.2, and I believe Emily has this item.
Correct. To introduce this item, I'll give some background. The Bushes are landowners that own the property where our access drive to our ferric chloride site is. We have had good partnership with them. They inherited the property from their parents, so it is semi-recent-ish transition, and the parents really established the easements and working relationship with the district. So we're trying to continue that with them. In that process, we have been looking at drive improvements that allow us to get trucks with chemicals back in a more feasible way. The existing drive is just too narrow for the turns that need to happen with a truck and not reinforced to the grade that a truck would require. So those are improvements that we brought forward to the board and were approved. In the process of developing those plans, we conducted a survey to align them with the plans and found that our existing easement description does not currently align with the access drive that's there. So I've outlined in yellow where our existing easement is, and you can see the access drive dips out over here. It also unintentionally includes their fence. And the way that happens is originally the easement was just described and based off of the property line. It just says 20 feet from there. And so It was never surveyed, and the intent was always that it would cover this drive. So when we looked at our options for driveway improvements, to stay within the terms of our easement, we would either need to realign, construct a new driveway that exists within the pathway of the existing easement document, which would require significant tree clearing. To do that, our driveway would no longer be straight. We'd have to create a crease, which is problematic for trucks. And really, in the best interest of cost and time and impact to the property, we wanted to pursue with the landowners if they were willing to amend the easement to get the easement aligned with the drive as it was intended. It's a change of 0.006 acres. So in that discussion, obviously the acreage was not significant. The compensation for that only reflects $200 for essentially inconvenience and some additional encumbrance. But they expressed some additional improvements that would be desired. Staff did quote those through the driveway improvement process and feel it would definitely be advantageous for the district to pursue the easement amendment with those improvements rather than realigning the driveway. So today, staff would recommend a motion to approve the bush easement amendment, and with one small edit, the survey drawing has proposed listed on it. We would have the surveyor remove that, and to approve the associated compensation, including $200 and negotiated site improvements as outlined in the board memo. It should be noted that these improvements are included, can be covered by our existing budget. So with that, I'll take questions.
Thank you, Emily. Any questions on this proposed easement amendment? Manager Boyles.
Should we be concerned about the district to cover all costs of any legal review, recording, notary, et cetera? Could that turn into something significant?
I'm not concerned with that. The recording is a known fee that would be around $40 to $60. The notary will be free because we work here, and legal review, they haven't expressed any interest.
They which? I'm sorry.
They haven't expressed any interest in that. They've asked we have a good working relationship with them because of this process. They've said, is this something that needs legal review? We said, that's up to your discretion. The amendment is for 0.06 acres and are not changing any substantive terms. So it would be maximum.
Any idea what ballpark for the legal costs if they changed their mind and said, hey, we should?
15 minutes, half an hour, $200.
Is that what attorneys are getting?
I think attorneys are normally 300, so half an hour, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, Frank?
Otherwise, it's $6,750 if my math works here, $6,700. No, that's it.
I have one question. Where is this unlocked gate? Where is that located or on your drawing?
It will be located close to the boundary line here.
Okay.
So there's an arrow pointing, but the scale doesn't really allow you to see it. So.
And that's really to serve us more than...
It's mutually beneficial. It's to deter. We've found some people down there that have, not suspicious characters that we don't need.
Any questions? Manager Morkenberg.
Yes, so I'm in favor of this, and I believe it's important to get it done soon because this is your first part of the project to start. Is that correct?
It can be phased as the second part if it doesn't align, but yeah.
Good.
It is desirable to complete it before the next ferric chloride delivery.
I have one more question. If a truck comes into that driveway to deliver ferric chloride, they have to stay within that easement then
Correct.
So either they back down or drive down and back out. That's going to be their.
Yep.
getting in.
The driveway's been designed to back in,
Yeah, we can't use any of their existing driveway.
not based on our easement terms.
Okay, very good. Any other questions from anybody? Okay. I assume you're ready to vote, so I need a motion to approve the bush easement amended with proposed remove from the survey drawing, and to approve the associated compensation, including $200 and negotiated site improvements as outlined in the board memo.
So moved.
Moved by Manager Morkenberg. Second by Manager Tofinelli. Any more discussion on the motion and on this item? Not hearing any.
So
Oh, Manager Boyles.
what we do on the next item impacts this, does it not? Or have I got my location screwed up in my head?
It,
I mean, if we-
it does from the standpoint that some of these items, like installing the private sign and that
Sure.
are in that proposal, so. We'd have to have,
Is-
somebody would have to install it. Whatever we agree to here, it
Sure.
has to get installed.
What's your assessment? If, because of the cost, we were unable to do the big project, and we just did this,
I don't know if I understand the question. Can you restate it?
am I, okay. Do I have, this is the same property in essence,
Right.
is it not?
Yep, and
Okay.
that's what our
So
project.
we've got a project that's $100,000 more than we estimated. Maybe we do it, maybe we don't. This project is preparatory to that. If we did just the preparatory project with the understanding that we're going to have to figure this other part out, are they going to feel wounded, or is it a good thing strategically to do? Do
I
you believe?
understand. Yep, I understand. So this has been communicated that these improvements would happen in conjunction with our improvements. So whenever that happened, we would just have to communicate, oh, we've been delayed. Those are gonna happen next year. If we were to do nothing and just operate under our existing driveway, the easement is still not covering it. So we would still want to go forward. As you said, this would be preparatory, get our easement aligned with the existing drive.
Okay, I was curious whether they were separable or really tied together.
Yep.
Tied together up here.
Okay, good question, Frank. Any other discussions or thoughts?
Where are we? Is there a motion?
Yeah, there is a motion. Motion made by Manager Morkenberg and second by Manager Tofinelli. And the motion is what I read off of the memo.
Yes.
Okay, I assume you guys are ready to vote? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried 5-0. Okay, now we're going to move on to items 4.3, Minnesota Watershed Resolution Delegate Selection. And I think I'll have Manager Burnett read what the motion is now, based on our workshop discussion.
Yeah, so I move to appoint myself, Ben Burnett, and Bruce Lonnie as delegates to vote on resolutions on behalf of the Prior Lake Spring Lake Watershed District at the Minnesota Watersheds Annual Conference, and to authorize the district administrator to submit the delegate appointment form to Minnesota Watersheds.
That's the motion. Any second?
Second.
Second by Manager Morkenberg. That's a long motion.
It is.
Okay, I don't know if there's any more discussion on that. Manager Burnett and I will try to make the meeting and be our representatives in voting on the resolutions. So unless there's any more discussion, we're ready to vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, 5-0. Okay, now we're going to go to item 4.4, ferric chloride. Ferric chloride site improvement contractor award. Emily, are you going to take this one?
Back to me. So as you know, we went out for quotes, requested quotes from a list of over 10 contractors for our site improvement work, which included an array of skills such as driveway work, building improvements, piping and chemical, tank replacement, garage door installation. As you can see here in the summary table, the quotes we received were quite higher than the estimate that we had going in. Upon receiving these quotes, EOR went back out and asked contractors who submitted quotes and those who did not, first of all, why did you not submit a quote, or what prohibited you, and what were factors that led to your pricing. And unilaterally, contractors' feedback was that there's a lot of specialized skills and in their business relatively small scale that caused this project to need lots of sub-consultants, and so the specialties and sub-consulting really inflated the price. You can see the difference between the two quotes received. There isn't really an established market value. It's what it costs to the contractor. So I've received some legal counsel from our legal counsel on our options here. The statutory requirements for quoting versus bidding is that the estimate is below $175,000. We were under that threshold. Now the quotes are over that. We can still go forward with the quote process even though they're over. So we are able to go forward with these if we choose to select them. If we choose to select line items from one of the quotes, essentially that opens us up to renegotiation with the contractor. So that is an option, but it opens up the pool again. We aren't necessarily going to get price changes in our favor or against. We could, a third option, go out to bid or quote again for the full project, or to separate into two groupings, which would be ideal, would be one in the driveway work and the building work separately. So if we were going to separate, that is kind of a natural division. And the decision process really seems to be driven by timing. If we want to continue on the aggressive timeline which we've been on to conduct this over the winter while the ferric chloride system is off, then the quotes we received are really the ones that are going to get us there, just with re-quoting. If we would like to proceed and see if we can get lower quotes, we could do that, but it would likely push out the timeline, and we would have some loss of efficiency, and we're going to have to do the bid administration likely 2 times more. If we separate, it'll be 2 times more. So with that, and taking into account the feedback we received from contractors, that the largest portion of their estimates was really the building, and those elements are very specialized and unlikely to go lower. Staff at this point would recommend a motion to authorize the district administrator to contract with U.S. Site Work for the construction of ferric chloride site improvements not to exceed $235,223, and to enter into change orders in an aggregate amount not to exceed $23,522, or 10% of the contract. And I'm happy to take questions, as I know there will be some.
You're going to be happy to answer questions. That's great. Because I got a feeling we have some questions.
And I'm very happy Carl's here to answer questions, too.
All right, Manager Boyles, you're up first.
One of the things I recall in city projects, and maybe this was unique to road improvement or something like that, is that you had to get to them early in the year, because they get their belly good and full by quoting and having jobs laid out. And by the end of the year, hey, I don't really need your work, but if you want to pay me extra, here's my quote. Did you get any indication, they're probably not going to be quite as overt with you on that, but did you get any indication that that might have had something to do with it? A timing issue is what I'm saying?
You'll see in Eeyore's memo that timing constraint was a factor. I wouldn't say it was the dominating factor. The unifying response we received was specialty work, small scale. Yeah.
Any other questions from anybody? I mean, I have one that, it seems to me we have two projects here. We combined them. We have the driveway work, the civil work, I would call it, and then we have the building and equipment. How much are we over, let's say, on the equipment and building versus the estimate? And how much are we over on the civil work based on the estimate?
I don't know those numbers on the top of my head. And
Carl, do you know?
Mr. President, if you look at it, at that, comparing the line item bids, recognizing that this isn't really public information, but just looking at the low bid, roughly speaking, the site work is $40K higher than our estimate.
40, okay.
And the rest of that 110 roughly is attributable to the building and the building and the tank and the pipe work.
And how much higher is that than your estimate?
That puts it almost at 70, so the total, comparing the engineer's estimate to the lowest bid is just shy of 110 more.
110 more for the building?
No, so that would be 70 more
70,
for the building
okay.
and tank and pipe work.
70K higher just for the equipment and building.
Yep,
40K for the driveway work.
for the site works, yes.
That makes up the 110 that we're looking at.
Correct.
Okay. Anybody else got a question or thoughts? I mean, my one thought is either we had a very low estimate or we had a very high bid and the bid's good. Either the estimate's very low or the estimate's good and we got a high bid. So that's what we're wrestling with, at least for me. I would have loved to have it if you had 2 or 3 quotes within 200, you know, then we could say, yeah, that's a good quote. But Manager Tofinelli.
I guess I understand the building complexity. I don't understand the site work, which being 40K off on the site work, that seems to me, not my business, but seems to be a little more straightforward. So I'm surprised at the miss on the site work. Maybe what got missed there?
You know, I would have to say it's the busyness, quite honestly, in the small volumes, because the unit costs that we use for estimates, like aggregate, $117 a cubic yard, that's not that's based on current bid prices. So, and with escalation for thinking about small quantities, so that gap. The biggest one is within common borrow, it looks to be, and the aggregate differences in prices that were quoted.
Another feedback we received from contractors was the driveway work is simple, but because it's a tight driveway, they can't use their big equipment. They have to use a skid steer or smaller constrained space to work in, so they'd have to get specific equipment out, and that was feedback we received.
You know, I would tend to agree, but I think I would agree more with Frank. Somebody's belly's full, and if I'm going to get the job, here's my price. Because that is way beyond. I mean, small equipment, that's actually cheaper to mobilize and get in there. And what I've seen on the drawings is not a lot of work. It's not a lot of dirt work. And the contractor that we're looking at is basically a dirt work contractor. So they know dirt. I don't know, the recommendation is to accept the bid and move forward, or option would be to not accept the bid and rebid. I think that's the only two bids, or two options, really. Go ahead, Matt.
Emily, did I understand that splitting this, you know, I know it was a full package, but I'm just surprised at the difference in the site work. It just seems to be a big miss on that. And 40K, what I understood, 40K of that miss was on the site.
Yep.
It just doesn't feel right.
And what proportion of that project was it to start with?
29%.
It was 29%?
So that's,
That's a big,
40.
without understanding the time commitment that you've already put on and the engineers have put on to do this, you know, if you told me, you know, we could relook at it, but that's gonna be $20,000 for us for our time to go, you know, this is a consideration, this time isn't free. And it just doesn't feel right to me.
I would just kind of echo what Bruce said. I do think for the site work, everybody's full. And if they're gonna try to take on a small project, they want a high % profit on the site works.
To touch on your question, Matt, I think on cost of going out for new bids, if we were just to take the existing quote for bid administration for EOR and do it twice over, it'd be somewhere 8,000 to 12,000 of work.
go ahead, Matt.
Is there any opportunity, I'm not gonna say what Frank said, it makes me smile, to push off the site work and do the building? They don't have to, one doesn't have to be done before the other. And would there be any benefit to exploring that? If we're going on the premise, it's full belly time, and timing is costing us 40 grand. Because I don't see that having to be done, but correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know that.
I'd like to bring one more point too. 70K miss too on the equipment and building. That's a pretty good miss too. But I don't, apparently I talked to Emily earlier, and she doesn't see us getting any reduction maybe. It was a miss. By rebidding, we may not gain any.
I was swallowing this, I was swallowing
swallowing
the
the building?
70K, really technical, different. I was just not swallowing the site work, which to me was too big a miss on something that people do for a living.
Well, the other thought, and I don't know if we can do this, can we delete the site work and just go with the building? That would jeopardize our quote.
It would jeopardize our quote, and technically, if we're changing more than a substantive amount, then we would have to go out for quotes again and get at least 2 quotes.
And knowing what I know about bidding and contractors, they are a dirt work contractor. You're taking out their bread and butter.
Right.
They're not going to go, if we take out the dirt work, they're not going to go with the building.
Yep. And we did have.
But we'd have to bid both. We'd have to rebid both if we're going to do this. So that's why I'm
Correct.
saying the option is go forward with the quote we have or rebid both of them. And we could rebid them separately, I think.
Correct.
Which we might get, and like Frank's saying, you could rebid it in the spring.
Yep.
I mean-
The major difference is timing, really.
Yeah,
And an inefficiency of going out to bid again.
yeah. Does everybody understand what I said? Because I don't. Okay,
What,
Manager Morkenberg, question.
One question I have is, if we postpone this project and go out and bid again, will the existing function of the iron chloride plant allow us to keep using it like this coming spring? Or is it in need of repair now?
in theory, but the tank is over its age capacity, so things could fail at any moment. We saw in our last year while doing this, prepping for this, we've replaced several elements, so it's aging. It's just a time clock that we have to decide how much we play with.
And are there some security things in terms of making the site secure for people that come there, work there? They are, I would assume, important to implement as well, right? Are those things that we can implement while we are waiting to?
Are you referencing like goggles and protective
Yes,
equipment?
things like that, yeah.
Yeah, Jeff is working on that regardless.
I had the same question.
Go ahead, Ben.
No, I had the same
Oh,
question.
same
that-
question?
That Manager Morkberger had.
I just have a question on timing here. So if we reject the bids, we go out for the equipment and building, which we'd like to do over the winter, get it ready for, let's say, April. Maybe not March 15th, let's go to April. And the other thing I know, can we go out for a quote and use Quest, which is a more broader, get that advertisement out to a broader area? You get it statewide, you get Wisconsin-wide.
We can use Quest for any,
Yeah.
It's
did we
more
use Quest for
stringent.
this?
Yeah.
We did?
we did not, this went through
Yeah.
a quote process, not a bid process.
You'll be amazed how many more contractors are out there, potentially. And, I mean, that was my thought is, if we could get out there and try it again. And the building project and the dirt, or this, are two really unique projects together. You know, you're not gonna get a contractor that does both. So bidding them, quoting them separately, you might be able to get a better contractor.
Yeah, and it almost seems to me, without knowing the project completely, but it seems to me there's the driveway, there's the building, and then there's all the equipment and the tank. So it's almost like you could even think about, we just get the people that do driveway do that, people that do building do that, and people that do equipment do that. I don't know if that's cost effective, but you know, you may need 3 different contractors to, that's what they will have to do anyway, like subcontracted.
They will need to subcontract on the building and chemical side. I think they'll need to be in conjunction enough, in coordination enough that should be managed as one project, because the moving of the tank and emptying and cutting walls open, piping will have to be. Yep, they'll have to have a sub-consultant.
Mr. Chair, I think maybe I think what I'm hearing is maybe the board's leading towards rejecting and directing staff to rebid this or requote this as 2 separate projects. There's maybe a blended version that is less administrative cost, keeping it together as one project, extending the driveway contract to before next frost next year, and get it done at leisure and connect the dots for earthwork contractors potentially, and let them know that Hawkins and or Hydrite, I think it is, Hawkins has been involved with the original assessment. They wouldn't bid on a project like this, but we could help connect the dots for a prime contractor. So that's maybe just a blended version of it versus administering 2 construction contracts.
And the idea is a longer period to construct it, which would give some contractors some better timeline.
And Carl, could you just, I want to make sure we all are on the same page with timeline. If we were to go forward with rebidding of any arrangement, I'm under the impression that we would either disrupt 2025 treatment season or wait until the next winter. I don't think it's possible to do a competitive quoting process, allow for a wide enough time window we would get a better bid, and still do it this winter.
I would say that the district would still want to pick a timeline, even if it's extended further out, that doesn't disrupt, and assume that the system is going to run fine next year, and not have them shut down and replace stuff during treatment season. I think that would still be preferable overall,
Okay.
but that's just my opinion.
Possible?
You certainly could shut down the system, yeah, or there might be windows of opportunity next year during the weather patterns or whatever where treatment isn't required. But that's, again, a complication of how you'd write up the scope. Yeah, I think we'd want to hash those details out.
Do you want to say something, Joni?
Manager Loney, I guess the other thing to think about here, you know, we were trying to draw our tank down and not have a lot of ferric chloride on it coming into this winter. We did go into rapid drought, so we didn't draw it down as much as we'd hoped. But still, just there's also the factor of you know, having chemical in the tank, and so there it influences what you can and can't do, or has some cost implications.
That's a good
Let's
point.
put it that way.
Yep, I remember you talking about that when we talked about the project. I just want to, okay, the reason I think 2 quotes work better is that we definitely would be under the $175,000 threshold. If you use the 2 quotes, I mean, today, you might be close. I mean, putting the 2 quotes together, if you were to rebid it, you might not, you know what I'm saying, Carl? You'd be over the 175. So going 2 quotes, equipment and building versus civil work. I looked at the drawings. You have 2 drawings for the building. You have 4 bid items. You have the specs. I think I could put this together in a half hour. Now, I know you also got to put together the bid packages and all that, but you've already done most of the work. Now you're just rearranging it, and I think you can make this quickly, and then you can get out and get the building, get a bigger tent of possible contractors. If we get a good quote for the building, get that built over the winter, and then next spring or summer, we get the driveway work done. That makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, I'm looking even at the schedule had here, depending on if we get really cold, you're dealing with frost, and I can see the contractor saying, I need an extra. That's my opinion, but we have to make a choice board as far as, I'm hearing the desire to go more to rebid, but I'm not sure I'm hearing that from everybody.
Well, is that a decision we have to make?
Mm-hmm.
Well, couldn't we put enough freeboard in whatever we pass here to allow them to decide whether to blend or to bifurcate the projects? I was hearing you can blend the project potentially and realize some of the positivity that you get from splitting it.
And if you blend it, I think you have to do sealed bids versus quotes,
So be it.
because that 175,000 threshold. We know now it's probably more than 175,000, right? I don't think,
Likely, yep.
unless you separate the quotes, you cannot use a quote system, in my opinion.
Manager Loney, were you advocating for using Quest even if it's under 175,000?
You can use Quest.
Yep.
Yep.
So,
Burnett.
So staff did recommend to just go ahead with the low bid, correct? I mean, that's.
correct.
And did you already consider, I mean, all these in the write-up, it says that you kind of thought about a lot of different options and you didn't think that it would necessarily improve the bids. By delaying a year, are we going to add more cost because other things coming in? I mean, is there a trade-off to just doing it now at the higher price than what we had expected versus, risking any number of things that happen in a year? Prices rarely go down. I mean, do you think it is still your recommendation to continue with the low bid now?
Partially, that recommendation was informed by, we've been directed by the board to get this done this winter to not disrupt treatment. So that's the only way to do it, is going forward. With this, there is a risk that you rebid and don't have any savings.
Sure.
We don't know.
Or something
but-
breaks along the way.
Yeah.
Yep. Yes, or something breaks, exactly.
So, question then for either Carl or Emily. If we were to rebid the equipment and building, requote it, let's say, how quickly could you requote it, get the advertisement out there, and could you do that by our next meeting in November? Or you could?
If
I'm hearing
it's,
Carl
if it's
not
split
yet.
and in a quote fashion,
Yeah.
still yes. Not in
So
a
if we
public.
did that and we authorize, let's say we got a good quote, we approve it, the contractor's working in December, January, February, March, April even. I don't think we're getting a lot of flow. I mean, that's doable, I believe, but I need to hear it from you.
We would have to make a wider window if we want the driveway prices to come down.
Well, I'm just saying, just equipment and building. You just do that
Oh,
quote.
Yep,
Yep.
yep.
Then you can work on the driveway,
Separately and
Separately.
wider.
and that window can be, you know, like Carl said, give them all summer.
As the, I think it is doable. As the project manager, my experience is that the time window feels tight now, and it becomes more tight to realize, oh, I got to get that approval by that board meeting. So I think we can try for it, but I have appreciated your flexibility in the past and bringing motions last minute because I'm trying to move things forward. So I think we'll be moving into that realm is how I'm feeling.
Well, this is a board decision, so we have to either accept the bid or reject the quotes, I guess. So we'd have to get a motion on the table,
Well, let me give it a try,
okay?
but recognize this is a collective, because I'm not going to touch on all the pieces, I'm quite sure. In fact, I know I won't. Number one, to reject all bids, or all quotes, I should say. Number two, to determine through whatever means appropriate whether or not we should do the project as two separate pieces or some sort of blending. I was hearing that earlier. Maybe that's already passed up. Maybe the idea is just to do them separately because then you can quote and you have greater flexibility in your acquisition process.
Right.
Is that what I was hearing? Okay.
I think Carl mentioned the blending, that there might be a better way of blending the project to get a better, I don't know, better quote, but I think when you blend them together, now you're talking sealed bids, and that process takes longer.
Yes, it does.
So that's all I'm saying is stay with the quote process, because otherwise, now we are in a time crunch.
Okay. And then I was also hearing something about trying to get the innards, as it were, into, what do they call it? Get that into the building to try and get that running as early as possible. Did I hear that, or did I make that up? Rather than, yeah,
Yep.
go ahead.
Manager Toffenali.
I'm doing it.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we simply make a motion to reject the recommendation and not try to incorporate
Right.
next steps?
Right.
Certainly could.
That would be simple.
Okay.
And that's
I'll
what
amend my motion.
that's what I was trying to say, either accept the quotes or reject it.
Okay.
I
So,
I make a motion to reject
second.
The
the
quotes.
recommendation and the quotes.
Okay, second by Manager Boyles. Any more discussion on the motion? We've had a lot of discussion, but I'll give one more chance.
I don't know if it's appropriate for me to add here, but I haven't mentioned this context, and I don't want it to come too late. So you mentioned, Bruce, that the primaries are dirt work companies here that submitted bids. Also, the contractors that attended our site were also dirt works leads. So just as a context for interest we got in this combined, even though that was the smaller portion, that was who came to the table. So if we went to requote, there is the risk for the building. I don't know what the interest is, that we didn't have any of those primaries show up. Sorry for
Okay.
that last
I
minute.
understand. But I understand. Okay. Are you ready to vote? I assume you have no more questions, discussion?
I just had a comment.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so to the engineers and the staff, I first of all want to thank you for all the hard work. And we may have to sort of just reconsider it and postpone it. And if it doesn't work out that we can do it this season, that may be the consequence. I would suggest that we don't try and change the building construction during the treatment season. So if it doesn't work out that it's this winter, I would say it should be the following fall and winter. That would be my suggestion.
I guess just to throw it out there, I was under the impression that the existing equipment was bad enough that the risk of it lasting another year was not good, and so I'm kind of more inclined to just accept and get it done.
Okay.
And I sort of agree with Manager Burnett on that. I mean, I would be willing to do that too, but it depends on the condition of the site.
I don't think there's anybody here that doesn't want to get the project done as soon as possible. But we want to get it done fiscally responsible. I mean-
This is a project we have to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The question.
It isn't like we don't want to do it.
No, I know, but I'm also,
Shot at the
I'm
mark.
really concerned with doing the rebid or the requote process and the time that's gonna add in, and
Okay.
I think that's gonna take too long, I guess, and push it off a year.
The main risky element that could fail would be the tank. So I just refreshed my memory on what the assessment said. The typical lifetime of one of those would be 15 to 30 years. Of course, things can last longer, things can last shorter. It's been covered, but that 15 to 30 years is the typical life of our tank. That life expired in 2014. The 30 years would have been 2014. So there is a risk. Can I see where? I'm not an expert. That I don't know if it's something you can see.
I think the 30 years is 2024. I think it was 94 was the tank.
It says it was installed in 1999, according to this, but I could double check.
1990. Okay, so that's,
But that,
These are
Yeah.
indoor tanks, they're not
Yeah.
outdoor tanks?
thank you.
they're fiberglass or polyethylene or whatever.
Well, are they,
I wonder if our
out in the
engineer have
elements
any
in
comment.
Minnesota, or are
No,
they
they're
inside?
The thing that concerns people is the chemical inside them.
Yeah.
That's if it was just water, you could make it last 100 years. So, Carl?
Just one final comment to Manager Burnett's concern. A lot of the things that would have been in this bid actually got replaced because they failed in advance. So Jeff has been systematically taking care of the radar, both in the building and at the water and the pump. So a lot of the things that were likely to fail, failed and have been replaced.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
the main thing is
So
the
that does extend the life significantly.
the main thing is the tank is still kind of an
Okay, any more discussion? Any more discussion? I assume you're ready to vote. All in favor of the motion, which is to reject the quotes, say aye. Aye. All in favor, or opposed?
Aye.
Did you say anything, Christian?
I didn't say anything.
I feel strongly both ways.
All right, the motion carries 3-1 with one person abstaining. Okay, do we need to give some more direction to staff? You guys, you need some more direction? Okay.
Well, I will vote for the motion. So yes,
Which motion? The previous one?
to reject.
Okay.
Reject.
So now the motion is 4-1.
It still passes.
It still passes.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so I think now, I think we want to go out and re-quote. But I guess that whatever the motion would be, motion would be to re-quote. To me, it would be to do two separate. That way we get the equipment, the equipment and building going
Okay.
quickly.
At this point, can we leave it up to?
Oh, you can.
Staff and Carl to figure out the best way to split and re-quote
That
so
would
that
be-
they can,
That would be good. Do you want to make that?
they can
motion?
kind of, I would move to let staff and EOR work together to come up with the best combination or split of a re-quote that they can come up with, and to proceed to put that out there so that it can get done as quickly as possible, preferably
Second.
before.
Okay, motion made by Manager Burnett, seconded by Manager Boyles. Any discussion? Discussion. Is staff okay with that direction?
Yes. and thank
Basically,
you.
you're giving you some leeway.
Yep, and thank you for the feedback and ideas in this conversation.
Okay,
Useful.
okay. Any more discussion? I'm not seeing any. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, let's take a break and go to the treasurer's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the financial report for October 2024, basically all the administrative fund expenses are tracking to be at or under the budget at the end. There's a new budget line item that has been added to the implementation fund track. And that is associated with the ferric chloride site improvement project. And that hasn't been there before. As we just discussed now here, the board decision then affects sort of the amount on that item. And so currently there wouldn't be any additional money, but that can change with time. The implementation fund expenses are also tracking to be under budget at the year end. And as we have talked about in the past here, in a couple of weeks, we'll receive like the third quarter invoice from the Scott Soil and Water Conservation District that covers all the activities from July through September. And a significant portion of these costs associated with, that's the farmer-led council, cost share permitting and easement, and that comes through the Soil and Water Conservation District quarterly invoices. And because we operate on a cash basis, there's a 2-month lag between when we receive this invoice and when it shows up on our statement. That means we won't see this statement from September 30th until our financial period that ends November 30th. So again, we will see more expenses as we get towards the end of the year, and some of the expenses will also go into 2025. The cash flow is important, and we have adequate cash flow to cover the expected expenditures. The cash flow statement that you can see has been updated so that we see the cash flow not only through the end of the year, but also into 2025, and so far is reflecting the budget that was approved last month, which again may be adjusted further. The expenditures are increasing as expected, and that is because of the increased activities we have had and have, so that's a good thing. It's expected that these expenditures will remain high until the end of the year. And finally, the cost analysis sheet, you can see that the consultants and the vendors, all the expenditures there are consistent with what we have been doing. And it's just a nice way, a different way of looking at our expenditures. If you, for instance, look there under consultants, you can see like which are our main consultants that we work with and how much money have we spent so far this year with them. So that's that will be the end of my report. Any questions?
Any questions for Manager Muckenberg? Sounds like some good numbers.
Yes.
Good report. Okay, so now we're going to go to consent agenda, and I think we need to pull off item 6.4, the claims list. Item 6.6, Lake Ridge Stormwater Study Consultant Award, and we did add 6.7, which is the draft MPCA grant agreement. So,
That was 6.4 and?
6.6, yep.
Okay.
I need a motion to approve the consent agenda, unless there's anybody else have any other items they want to remove? No? You're good?
So moved.
Okay. Frank moved the consent agenda as modified.
Second.
Second by Manager Tofinelli. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, 6.4, there's just, I was handed this by Administrator Gacy that there's one item that I believe was not on there, or is it incorrect?
President Loney, the claims list that was in your packet was incorrect. The one in front of you is correct.
Okay.
You will see the addition of one additional pay item that we wanted to add to the claims list.
Okay, so the claims list that's on your table here is the one to approve. So I'm looking for a motion to approve this.
So moved.
Moved by Manager Burnett. Second by Manager Tofinelli. All in favor of the motion to approve the claims list as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Okay, item 6.6, there's one word that needs to be changed in the proposed action. Instead of, in the very bottom, not to exceed 10% of the grant agreement, it should say 10% of the contract. And I only wanted to make a point that we're awarding this to Stantec. And 2 months ago, we did not award them to finish the Swamp Lake design. For whatever reason, I think they didn't do a good job. So my only question in looking at this from a big picture is what happened? Did they see the light? Did they, what happened in 2 months? You know, how much have they changed in 2 months?
A good question. The answer is pretty simple. It's just staff expertise. The project manager on the Swamp Iron Enhanced Sand Filter did not have a lot of experience with Iron Enhanced Sand Filter, but is very experienced in stormwater retrofit. So it wasn't we had a great working relationship.
I noticed they did have a different project. I mean, he's still the client representative, but we have a different project manager, so that's the difference.
There is a difference in staffing, but I'm confident in the expertise for this project. It was really just specific to the different types of project.
And one other point I just wanted to make sure everybody knows, Stantec is the Spring Lake Township engineer as well, so we have that coordination with them. Okay. Well, I'll make the motion to approve, to authorize the district administrator contract with Stantec Consulting Services, Inc. for completion of the Lake Ridge Estate Stormwater Retrofit Feasibility Study in the amount not to exceed $47,986.50. Furthermore, the board authorizes the district administrator to enter into change orders not to exceed 10% of the contract. And need a second? Second by Manager Burnett. Any more discussion on this motion? Christian, you, nope. Ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Well, we're at that point of the meeting where Frank's going to tell us about the upcoming event and meeting schedule.
I can tell you, with great relish, I will do that, Mr. Chair. First and most unique, a buckthorn wreath making party, as it were, Saturday, October 26th, 1 p.m. to 3, was that what it was? 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. at Boathouse Brothers Brewing. You can decide which beer or not goes best with Buckthorn.
It says advanced registration.
Doesn't it say that there? Oh, advanced registration is required, and the number then is, who do they call?
They can call Danielle Studer or our general line. The RSVP is linked on our Facebook event.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Board of Managers Workshop is Tuesday, November 19th, 4 p.m. at Prior Lake City Hall, and we think in Parkview Conference Room, as the elections will be over at that point. Similarly, the Board of Managers meeting will take place the same evening, Tuesday, November 19, at 6 p.m., but in the council chambers, as we are now. And then finally, the PLOC Cooperatives meeting will take place Thursday, November 21st at noon here at City Hall at an undesignated place.
And I believe there might be a conflict with that PLOC meeting, Joni?
Yeah, President Loney, I was just informed the other day that that meeting is in conflict with the APWA Fall Conference, and so we will not have enough people attending the cooperators to reach a quorum. So I'm in the process of trying to find a new date for that meeting.
So cancel that.
So exactly, I'm sorry, yes, cancel the PLOC
To
date.
be determined, yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
That's all. Thank you.
thank you, Manager Boyles. At this point, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Manager Topanelli, and Manager Burnett got the second. All in favor to adjourn, say aye. 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 We are adjourned at 7:17. Thank you, everybody. Yeah.
What was everyone's